Following their father's beheading, the Dudleys fled to America in hopes of avoiding the family curse. However, their association with a mythological book thought to open the gates of hell. Interesting. And it condemned them and anyone who befriended them. Not good friends to have.
No.
Murder, suicide, insanity, and failing businesses afflicted the community they founded. Have you guys ever been to Dudleytown? Right here
Once.
in good old CT?
No, I
Once?
haven't.
Mhm.
I've seen pictures. I know people who have, but I haven't been.
I think it's all just foundations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of foundations in the woods of New England, though. Everywhere.
It is New England, though. New England is old.
Old. Yeah.
Sometimes we forget how old.
Did you guys know that there are over 3,500 ghost towns in the United States, mostly from the frontier era and the 19th and 20th centuries?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. There's tons and tons and tons. Dead country.
Dead country.
There's this town called Centralia in Pennsylvania, which is now nearly abandoned, going from 1,000 residents all the way down to 5 due to a coal mine fire that's been burning beneath the borough since 1962.
I've never been to Centralia. It's something I want to go.
How come I
Yeah.
can barely keep a fire going for more than like 6 hours?
Because you're not a fossil fuel.
That's true. That's true. Gentlemen, about 2 hours away, there is the town of Dixonville. And in the early 1940s, 2 mining inspectors received a frantic call about a collapsed shaft. They rushed to the accident site where they found 15 coal miners now helplessly trapped.
I can't imagine that it was that odd around that time to hear about coal mines collapsing and miners dying or getting trapped. I would think that was a
No.
pretty regular thing.
And all the
Yeah.
meanwhile, these people probably didn't get paid nearly enough.
No.
25 cents a day.
Probably something crap.
Sick.
According to a document, there were hostile subterranean lizard people, and they encountered them underground. First responders noticed a lifeless body laying on scattered debris. His skin was lacerated with claw like marks from an unknown creature. More corpses soon surfaced. The deceased miners had identical gruesome injuries. All had succumbed to these horrific wounds. Despite scouring the deep tunnel, several miners were still missing. Additional personnel joined the search party in hopes of retrieving survivors. Wow. So now we're getting into lizard people. This is
That's really weird, right?
You think there's lizard people underneath Pennsylvania?
maybe that's why the
Could be.
fires are kept going, to keep them warm.
In 2011, the Ukraine state authorities said around 320 years would be the time of contamination. 3,000 years was estimated by the Christian Science Monitor in 2016. The same year, the Chernobyl director stated that it would be more like 20,000 years or even more. So it's kind of an unsettled debate as to how long this will be radiated and not safe to be in.
They must take levels and stuff to see. There's definitely irradiated animals and fish and different types of plants that have mutated because of the radiation over the last 30 something years. But I know that it's at least areas of the community you can go with. You need a Geiger counter probably just to make sure you're not stepping into something that's bad. But I know radiation levels are safe enough in certain areas for people to actually go there without breathing protection and stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny you mention animals and fish and stuff. There's actually an episode of River Monsters where Jeremy Wade goes to Chernobyl trying to catch this crazy mutated channel cat or something in Chernobyl.
Don't forget, when you're talking about the radiation levels, there was also a metal dome that was constructed around the original Chernobyl plant. In 2017, they made this massive metal dome, and it was moved remotely over the core part of the meltdown. They moved it over it, and they encased it pretty much in this big metal dome. And supposedly that dropped the levels of radiation
Stop
and
the
kind of
actual
cased it. Yeah.
yeah, like the movement of
Really?
dust particles and stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah, that one caught me because isn't Point Pleasant in the TNT area, right? Which is an old munitions thing. I don't think we found out if those munitions had chemical agents or could have nuclear components, radioactive components.
And then you bring into play all the sightings of UAPs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, flying over these nuclear reactors. And it makes you think, okay, well, if you have UFOs over these reactors, who's to say certain cryptids that may or may not be drawn to these locations aren't visiting, and maybe they bring death and destruction along with them?
Or the amount of energy from a nuclear power plant, could that be causing a portal in that area?
That's something that we talked about when you were talking about the TNT area is there is a lot of sightings and there is a lot of cryptid related things near areas of high explosions. It's an interesting line to draw where you see these cryptids in those areas.